Hello my friend, I hope that you are well and welcome to my chef's recipe. To finish this part about function, let's review everything important that we learned so far in order to make sure that you really understand function before we move on to the other topics inshallah. And let's start by bringing back and rewriting the function that we wrote before, which is the years until retirement. Okay? So I think it is in this one, yeah, this one. So I will command this code. Good. So this one I can omit it for this moment. And the first thing that we are gonna do is to actually convert it to a more normal function expression. So how do we do that? Well, in this case, we simply get rid of the arrow function. How simple. Okay? And of course, what you can do also, what we must do, remember, of course, we must write the function here. Okay? And now it's good. We have converted to the function expression. Good. Next up, we could export this functionality here into another function. Okay, so like a calc age function that we have been using before. So let's do that, because then we can do that. So I call it const calc age equal function, and I give him the birth year. Okay, and now curly this, and what we want to return, the same thing, return as the previous one, nothing new here. Okay, I've just created function for calc age again. Okay, now what I will do, you might find it confusing that we have two different functions here with the same parameter, birth year and birth year. So this one has birth year and this one has 2 also, but that's not problem at all. Don't worry about this. So the birth year in the calc age function is not at all related to this birth year in years until retirement function. They are two completely different parameters, completely different. So basically, two different variables. We could even have a variable outside of any of the function, which could also be called birth year, okay? And we could do that now. But I don't want to confuse you even more further, okay? But what matters here is that this parameter is really like a local variable to each function. Anyway, let's now go ahead and delete this this function. Okay. Good. Sorry, not this function. This part of code. And instead, calculate the age based on the function that we just wrote. And actually, I just delayed the expression, and so now the age will come from the function calc age that I have created now. Okay? And what we pass here is the birth year. So calc age and birth year. So simple. So again, I know it's confusing now with the same parameter names here, but let's quickly call this function. So just I can quickly show you the data flow. So years until retirement, and the same thing 1986, and for Halim. Okay, Then a first step this year anti-retirement function called calc age, and it's called calc age with the argument of 1986. So this one here, okay? And so then birth year in this function also becomes 1986. And so then in the calc age function, the operation will be 2021 minus 1986. And if you find it less confusing, we could change this year to something else. For example, I can just write here year, okay, to not be confusing with the name, but it is not problem, as I said before. It is the same thing. So again, these variable names in these two different functions, they do not have anything to do with one another. All right? But let's actually put it back here to birth year, because it's a good tip to keep this in mind. Then down here, let's go back to returning a number and not the string. Okay? Which for now I will just comment out. Oops. And I will return the retirement in this moment. Return retirement. So here we call once our function, and I'm not gonna store it again in the variable, so I just do console.log to see the result. Okay, now you have understand we don't need it. If you need it, of course, if it's important, no problem. You must store it. But in this case, I don't need it. Okay? So this should be just like before, 30. Okay, let's see. Let's see now. Good. It's good. But now I want to show you something which is to call this function again. So let's say now I have, for example, I can do it here, another twice, I call it twice. Here I have, for Hisham, it is born in 1954, and for Hisham. Sorry, my friend, it is not your first year, so it is, I know, it is just for example, my friend, huh? If you see this video. Okay, brother Hisham. And so now, if I reload, what I have -2. And so negative number, which means that he already retired. Okay? So let's quickly account for that. So what we'll do is to basically return this number if it is above 0. And if it is below 0, we are going to return something else, like -1 or something, or some special number, to make it very clear. Because -2 is no sense. So instead of returning simply the retirement, let's take the decision now, based on the retirement value. And so that's something that we learned in the last video, okay? Or the previous video. So let's use an if statement and say if retirement is greater than 0, okay, then here I can use square braces or no, as you want. You have the choice because they're just one line. Here I will return the retirement. Okay, it's the first case. Else, let's just return -1 for any value. Okay. So -1 is kind of standard number in programming. Huh? We could also like return something like this, something like this. Okay. So a number that shows us clearly that has no meaning. So let's just keep it -1, standard to use it. It's good to use it. And I'm returning actually numbers here and not the string, as we had before, because that's usually what we do, especially when we actually receive a number as an input. So here, in this function, we get birth year here as an input, and it's a number. And therefore, it's good practice to then also return a number. Okay? So let's try that again. And I have here 30 for the first one, and for the second, -1. Great. Now, one thing I didn't mention yet is that the return keyword here will actually immediately exit the function. Okay? So this one, I can, of course, remove it. I don't need it. I forgot to remove it before, so I don't need it, because I have returned the timer before. So I repeat. This return here, or this return here, will actually immediately exit the function. So it will first return the value that we tell it to return. So in this case, the retirement value, and then after that, the function is done. So it exits immediately. And we also say that the function has returned. Okay? So let me actually demonstrate that to you, and that I will do it. To take this string here. Okay? Now we can get rid of this comment. And I put it after the return. Oops. Sorry. Why I can't select it? Oops, sorry. Good. So without the comma, copy. Okay, so now I copy it after I remove all this line. So I put it here now. Now I need curly braces because it is not just one line that I need. So something like this. And now I put console.log. I put this string now. Okay, that's what I need here. Same thing for this one in the else block. And of course this one I don't need it because I have put copy the value, so I put the same thing here but just after. Same thing. So after this, and good. Okay. What I have forgot. Good. Maybe I haven't. Yeah, there is no comma here, of course. Good. Good. And what do you think will happen when we run this code now? What do you think? And keep in mind that we have the return before the console.log in both cases. So in the if block here and also in the else block. So what do you think is going to happen with this console.log? So let's see. I remove this one and I reload. I have the same result. Okay, so this console.log are simply ignored. So they will not be executed because, as I said before, the return statement immediately exit or immediately return the function. And so therefore there is no chance that this code here or here will be even reached. So if you want this one here to be executed, we need to put it before the return, and in VS Code you can do it simply by hitting the Alt plus up button. Okay, in the Windows, in the Mac version is I think Option plus up. So I will repeat here, Alt plus up. Good. So simply. And of course I can put it back. You see? Just with up arrow and down. Good. And also you can do this from the menu selection here. Okay? And here is it. Move line up and move line down. So I use that one all the time. I also use add cursor below. Okay? All the time, and also I use add next occurrence. Lot of time. So what this means is that if we have this birth year, or this one, the same thing, if we select it, then we can already see all the birth years selected or highlighted. Do you see? But if we hit Ctrl plus D, look, then it actually selects just in the area when this variable will work. Okay? So when I select this one, look, I mean Ctrl D, I have, by default I have all the variable, but now when I make Ctrl D, it will select this one and this one, but these two, no, because it is not in the same area, because it is local variable. So you see, these two are highlighted with the same color and this one not. Okay, I can do it here also, or from here, look. Okay, so Ctrl plus D, oops, you see? It's very powerful. So, but anyway, now let's go back to what we have. And now let's do something with this shortcut to show you when I select all of them. So when I do Ctrl plus D, and here if I want to rename this variable to year, I have the both was named automatically. Okay, directly. So simple. I forgot to show you this. It's very, very important when you need to rename your variable. Okay, let's go back now to our code. So I just moved the console here .log before the return here, and so now there should be a chance that the console.log is actually executed before the value is returned. And now, when I reload my page, yeah, now it works. So we get the string, and here we get Hisham retires in minus 2 years, and also have -1. Okay, good. So this was to show you some more thing about function that we had already learned, and also show you something new, which is the fact that the return statement here immediately exits the function. So we reviewed already some things here, but now it's time to really review everything that we learned so far about function in this first couple of videos. So let's go to the slide to see all this concept. And here we have the three types of functions that we talk about. So we have first the function declaration. And one particularity about function declaration is that they can be used before they are declared in the code. Second, we have the function expression. And they are essentially function values that are stored in a variable. Okay? And finally, we have narrow functions that are in the fact also function expressions, but special one. Yeah, like Mourinho. And these are great for quick one, like function where we don't need to explicitly use the return keyword. And no curly braces either. I also said that this one has no this keyword. But more about that in one of the future videos. Don't worry about this keyword for this time. Now, what's important to note here is that these are three different ways of writing function, but they all work in a similar way. So all of them can receive input data, they transform data, and then they can output data. It's all optional, but usually that's the thing that the function do. And no matter which type of function we use, we can always do this three things. And now let's zoom in a little bit further and take a close look at the structure of common function, let's say. And this one here is a function statement, but it works the exact same way for all other type of function again. So first, usually a function needs a function name. Okay? So calc age in this example. Then a function also has parameters. And these parameters are essentially placeholders that receive input data, input value. So as I said before, these are a little bit like a local variable of a function. So variables that are defined only inside of this very function. Now, as you also already know, we use function to reuse a piece of code. And this piece of code are inside the function body. So this is where the function input data is usually processed and then returned. And speaking of the return, by the end of the function, we usually have a return statement, which we use to output a value from the function. And also, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the return statement are also immediately terminate the function's execution. Remember, we also say that the function returns, okay? And now, about calling the function, we do that using parentheses. So we write the name of the function, like we did here with the calc age, and then with the parentheses, we call the function. Because without the parentheses, the function is really just a value. But then with the parentheses, we actually called a function. And you can also say that we ran the function or invoke the function or execute the function. And all of these terms kind of mean the same thing. Now, in this case, since the function actually has parameters, we then call the function with argument, and these arguments are the actual values of the function parameters. So we use this to input the actual data into the function. And we can also imagine this is replacing the placeholders that are the parameters. Then once the calc age function has finally done its job, then all this expression will basically be replaced with the returned value. So in this case, the age that was replaced here. And that age value is what we then store into this age variable. So we use this variable to basically save the returned value that was outputted from the function. Okay? Now just another thing that I want to make clear is that this console.log that we have in the function, so in that first line there, has nothing to do with the returning value. This simply print a message to the developer console, but it has nothing to do with returning. Okay? Actually, the console.log is just another function called inside the calc age function, but because console.log is itself a function. And so the argument that we pass into the console.log function is what we will get printed to the developer consoles. Okay? So just want to make sure that you really get this distinction between console.log and return. The reason why we always use console.log is because we want to see the result of our experiment in the developer console in the browser. Anyway, I think this is pretty much sums up there is to know, at least for now, about function. So make sure that you get all of this down and you can move on right to the next part of this video, inshallah, where the first coding challenge of this section wait for you. And as you can probably guess, it's gonna be about writing your own function for the very first time. So let's go to show you the first coding challenge. So here is your first coding challenge for the function topic. So here is the content. We're back to the gymnastics teams, the dolphins and the koala. There is a new gymnastics discipline which works differently. Each team competes 3 times, and then the average of the 3 scores is calculated. So one average score per team. A team only wins if it has at least double the average score of the other team. Otherwise, no team wins. So here is different task. As you can see, create an arrow function, use the function to calculate average, etc., etc. And I'll give you also the test data and also some hints. So try to make this coding challenge. Try please. Take your time. Take a breath and take your time. When you're ready, do it. Maybe it will be difficult the first time, but try again, try until you found the solution. Don't please hesitate to put it in the comment. Okay? And I will see your correction. And of course, I will give you feedback about this. So we have finished, not topic, but this video. And we'll see you in the next one, inshallah, when we talk about new thing in JavaScript that we have talked before, but it is with new thing here. Okay, so I let you always, I know it's always for next subject, but don't worry. So just review this one before to jump to the next topic, inshallah. Take care of us. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Faisal Azib. And follow me on Instagram, teams.winners, Faisal.chico. And in Telegram, Reportis and Char, Twitter, Teams Winners. I tell you goodbye. Wassalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.